This is baseball, Major League Baseball. And this is
ABC's Monday Night Baseball, live from Fenway Park in Boston, Massachusetts.
Looking. He's under the gun. He's tied. He throws.
June 14th, 1976, Dwight Stone's on the cover of Sports Illustrated, one of the best high jumpers of all time. Welcome to Past Our Prime, a show with three hosts, Bill Mahoney, Mark Hoffman, and myself, Scott Johnson. Each week we talk about what was going on 50 years ago in the world of sports, and we are getting closer and closer to the 76 games in Montreal. That will be a focus of much of our summer, and guys like Dwight Stones. I think we'd all be pretty hard-pressed to name a current high jumper. I know I couldn't. Could you guys?
No.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah,
No?
nothing.
No?
I got nothing on that.
Yeah, yet Mark, 50 years ago, Dwight Stones was an extremely well-known athlete, not just in the world of track and field, but sports in general.
Yep. He was, to me, one of the most well-known track athletes in the world. You know, before people knew who Bruce Jenner was, there was Dwight Stones, and you know he was an announcer too, so he was all over TV. And he started off at UCLA with my brother-in-law. Actually, they were both on the track team, both high jumpers, and then he ended up at Cal State Long Beach. But I love the cover here because it says 7'7", a lofty record for Dwight Stones. And to me, think about it. That would be like Dwight Stones running, leaping backwards, and jumping over Victor Wembanyama with a couple inches to spare.
Yeah.
Dang.
That's a lot. That's a high leap.
3 inches to spare.
But or 2 inches, depending on who you listen to.
But he probably would kick him in the face as he cleared him.
While wearing his Knicks jersey, yeah.
Yeah. Now, when we talk about the high jump, which we don't do all that often here on Pop, you have to know what the Fosbury flop is. And I want to know, either of you guys ever try anything close to that? There are some things in sports that, like, I looked at as a kid and I was just like, I'll never be able to do, anything close to that. That the Fosbury flop being one of them.
Well, in 7th grade at Marco Forster Junior High in Dana Point, California, we did the high jump. They put up a little thing, and that was part of the PE class. And so we'd run up, and I think whatever we did, I jumped backwards, and then you flip your arms. I don't know if I was doing the Fosbury flop, but we did something similar to that, having never heard of it back in 77.
Yeah. It takes it is truly like all technique, and just how Dick Fosbury came up with that is truly amazing.
Yeah, there's no way I would be running and turning around and leap. I can't even leap 6 feet, let alone leap my back to something and go over a pole. And that and pole vaulting, there's just not a chance in hell I would do anything.
One of the more impossible things to do, if you ask me, is the high jump. Just like you said, jumping over Wembanyama. Oh my gosh. And in 1993, Cuba's Javier Sotomayor set the record that has stood for almost 33 years now. The only person to ever jump higher than 8 feet. And Bill, he did it twice.
He did, but you have to go back to 1988. He's just a young junior. He sets the junior world record by jumping 7'11" and a half. Next year, first guy ever, 8 feet, half inch. That was on his second attempt, obviously becoming the first person to ever clear 8 feet. He had some injuries, came back, 1993, needed 5 jumps to jump 8.25 inches. Unbelievable. He lightly brushed the bar on the way over, but he made it, and that record stood for over 30 years, still going now.
Man. You would think that it's one thing if someone had jumped 7 feet 10. It doesn't have that panache the way, someone finally jumped 8 feet. You would think that would really motivate others, and I'm sure it has.
Yeah.
And people just can't do it. That just shows what a phenomenal jumper that Sotomayor must have been.
But you also say if you look at what was Stone's best jump? 7'7",
Yeah.
7'8", maybe. He's what, 4 or 5 inches over that.
Yeah.
I mean, that to me is because that's Stone's jump was something I look at and go, there's no way a human can do that. And then a guy came along and didn't just beat it by a quarter inch, he beat it by 4.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, think of that.
Right.
So Stones jumped 7'7".
Yeah.
You know, like if the guy who came in second jumped 7'2", you'd be like, well, he demolished him, So
Yeah.
you're talking 4 or 5 inches in that sport. Those are large margins.
Yep.
Ding, ding,
Scorecard. Bill, you got a thing for Abe Lemons, don't you?
I do. I think I've fallen in love with the old Texas basketball coach. Last week I talked about They Said It. Abe Lemon said, one of these days the NCAA might put in a rule that says you have to have one player each year on your team from your home state. Well, this year Texas announced their incoming recruiting class. 3 players from California, 1 from Oklahoma, 1 from Kentucky, and the 4th recruit, because Abe Levins didn't want to be called out, was from Waxahachie, Texas. So he still kept someone from his own state.
Ooh, barely.
Woo! Hopefully I get Abe Levins again next week.
We're going to be looking forward to that.
Yes.
Mark, Slapshot, the movie.
Yep. So there's a whole talk about Paul Newman, and there were 100 members of the film crew. They were in Johnstown, Pennsylvania for a week or so, or they left a week or so ago. They had spent 2 months there shooting this movie called Slapshot about the rigors of minor league hockey. They spent more than $1 million, used local people as extras, but not everyone was happy because there's a lot of violence and swearing in the movie. So Jim Cardiff, who's coach of the local Johnstown Jets of the North American Hockey League, turned down a $600 a week acting job in the film because he said, I accept Jesus Christ as my savior. I don't use profound language in everyday life. No doubt there is profanity in hockey, but not to the degree it is used in this movie. Now, other people didn't care about that or whatever. They were like fine being in the movie, but I don't think anyone there, I mean, granted, Paul Newman coming to your town, you figure, okay, the movie's got a chance to be successful because it's a big name star.
Sure.
But I don't think anyone thought that this movie would come there and 50 years later still resonates with people. Yeah. And I remember in high school I did some babysitting just to make some money, and I remember one night babysitting, and the wife was going out with her boyfriend, and they were going to see the movie Slapshot. So I remember.
I would love to have seen you as a babysitter, Mark.
Well, no, it was great because you have a young enough kid. The kid's in bed like half an hour after you get there, and then you're just
okay.
Sitting.
I've got Dave Kingman. Do you think?
We're trading now.
I want to know why the wife had a boyfriend.
Exactly.
Oh, because she was divorced.
I
probably should have mentioned that one.
I hope they did.
All right, Mark. They're probably both no longer with us.
Me and the husband hung out with the kid.
She'll be back.
But it was funny. Mark, there was one guy in this town that people were saying some people can't believe that Paul Newman was really in Johnstown, but the guy said that doesn't impress me. Now, if it had been Raquel Welch, that's a difference.
Yes. Well, I'm glad they didn't use a lot of profanity, though.
Yeah.
No. Or profanity. Yes, you're right.
Son of a.
You speak English?
Son of a bitch, please.
It's time for They Said It.
They Said It. Bill, lead us off.
Oh, gosh, I got to go back. Okay. We are talking about Bev Norwood. She's talking about Sam Snead. She said Sam Snead, trying to shoot his age the day after his 64th birthday, instead shot Cliff Roberts' age, 83, and missed the cut by 2 shots.
Oh.
Good job, Sammy.
Yeah, way to go. Mark.
I've got Steve Renko, who was traded for the Montreal Expos to the Chicago Cubs. He's a pitcher. And they asked him, what is it like to play Montreal? He says, well, there ought to be a clause in your contract that can allow a player to veto a country. We have to pay 2 taxes, ours and Canada's. The only way to beat it is to move there, and I wasn't about to do that. And then there's the weather. Awful.
Welcome to Montreal.
And I go home.
CM Newton, Alabama basketball coach. When a coach is hired, he's fired. The date just has not been filled in yet. So he is absolutely right. Bill Belichick, when he got hired by the Patriots, the date was 20 years later. For some, for this the guy who's coaching the San Francisco Giants, I bet you his date's a lot sooner.
What are the Giants' record right now?
Oh gosh, what 25 and 38 or something
And
like
isn't
that?
he having trouble at
That's
press
the Tigers.
conferences and stuff?
Yeah, they just are pretty much a mess. Pretty much a mess.
Oh, for one for Buster Posey.
It would take Posey to admit that getting a college coach didn't work out. So we'll see if he owns up to that. Call them champs again. Last week we had Alvin Adams on the show, the 1976 NBA Rookie of the Year, who was hanging tough with the Celtics. Mark, Celtics that get used to hanging banners back then.
Yeah, they beat the Suns in 6 games. It's their 13th title. And so far, the franchise has won 18. But when people think of the Celtics, they think of the Paul Pierce teams. And then prior to that, the Larry Bird teams. The Celtics, prior to that, won 13. In the 60s, they dominated the sport. Those were like the real glory days of the Celtics and stuff that fans today, I don't think, really appreciate.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, the Bill Russell, Red Auerbach.
But listen to this, okay? Their championships, okay? They won in 57, 59, 60, 61, 62, 63, 64, 65, 66, 68, 69 before the 70s. That's crazy.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, and UCLA did that. Montreal did that in hockey. I mean,
Can't do it anymore.
you had fewer teams, so that was more likely to happen back then. And if you got the guy, if you had Lou Alcindor, if you had Bill Russell, good luck.
Thank you.
Phoenix never won a title, Billy. They've been to few of them, but they've never gotten it done.
No, and the thing is a lot of times teams get to titles and they lose, and there's always someone that goes, "This team's good. They'll be back. Don't even worry about it." Well, Phoenix never didn't get back to the finals for another 17 years when they got Charles Barkley to pair him along with KJ, and they've gone to one more title after that. I want to believe it was almost 20 years later. So there's no guarantee you get back to these at the height of NBA basketball. And they had a good team. They also ran into a few guys on the Lakers that held them back too.
Game 5 in Boston, an all-time classic, 3 overtimes, a near riot, and a last-second Garherd buzzer beater to send it to a third overtime before reserve Glenn McDonald of the Celtics scored all 8 of his points in the third overtime, sealing a 128-126 Boston win at midnight. So, you've mentioned a couple times, Billy, that series is tied 2-2, and it goes to triple overtime. If the Suns win that game, maybe we're not talking about the fact that they've never won a title.
That's right. That's right. Because you're going back home with that momentum of a 3 overtime win. Boston's has to fly across country with that same thing. Damn, we lost that game. I'm not saying they would have won, but it would have been a neat little thought if they did. But also, did you say Glenn McDonald?
Yeah.
Has anyone ever heard of Glenn McDonald? First time, I've never heard of that guy. Anyone?
I mean, we brought him up, I think, with Bob Ryan because I almost got him as a guest for one of the shows. He went to Long Beach State, but no, I looked up his career, did not have a long career, and I think this is like the only game in the finals that he even played.
Okay. That's even a greater angle. Boy, don't play but score 8 points. I never heard when you said that name, I kept thinking I was up on the NBA in those years. I never heard that name. I thought,
yeah, well, had I ever heard of him prior to this? No.
No, okay.
Not.
Okay. Mark, you?
Nope.
Okay.
The right height for Dwight's flight. Bill, we're talking Dwight Stones, the cover guy, and he was a confident dude.
Oh my golly. He talks about, even in his little interview, about that a lot of people didn't like him because he had attitude. If you watch some of the videos of Stones when he would go over the bar, he would get off, he'd hit the mat, get off, look back at a quick turn, look right at the bar and stick his chest out. I'm sure that didn't go over well with a lot of the guys there, but I thought it was fantastic. That's how I knew Dwight Stones.
Yeah, we all did. I mean, he was just a showman, to say the least. Mark, he said he was going to break the record, and he did. He had tried it how many times prior trying to get this height, and he finally gets there.
Yes, and 7'7" is quite an accomplishment. I mean, today the record's 8 feet and a quarter, inch. But that's going to happen in any sport, whatever you do 50 years ago. I'm trying to think of something that was done 50 years ago that just, it doesn't matter how great an athlete you become, you can't top it. It's just, it's the pinnacle. It's like, as great a nutrition or training you do, there's no way to top it. And that requires some thought, Maybe I'll think about it as we continue
Pitching
these
7
podcasts.
innings.
Yes, yes. Going more than 99 pitches.
How about throwing 300 innings in a season,
But can I ask you guys a question?
Yeah.
Think of anything you would try. If you tried something, let's say difficult, 63 unsuccessful attempts before Stone set that record.
Yeah.
Think of that, 63, and that's the high jump. Is there anything in this world that you guys have tried and thought, I can't do it? And how many times do you go until you go, damn it, I just can't figure this out?
Trying to have sex with girls.
Yes. Well, I'm over 100 on that. So
You got bigger problems.
my whole high school and college years were a whole bunch of me going, I did my best. I had my best game going.
I went way past 63.
Yeah. Thank God. Yeah.
To me, it's chess. I mean, I understood the move. Well, the first time I played chess, I didn't know the moves. So some guy said, "You want to play chess?" I said, "Sure." And I tried to play it like checkers. And he looked at me after a couple of and says, "You don't know how to play this game, do you?" And I said, "Well, yeah, I don't." And then I learned how to play the game, or I learned the moves, but I still didn't know how to play the game, the strategy. And we had a Swedish kid that lived with us for a few years, really nice kid named Julian. And I played him chess one time. It was 3 moves and it was over.
Now, Mark, are you comparing having sex with women to chess?
I am, because a lot of times when they turn you down, it's checkmate. You're out.
Hey, baby, you want to go back up in the room?
Not interested.
I got a
Checkmate.
chessboard up there you're going to like to see.
Is that your opening move when you were young? You'd come up and you'd say, "Hey, kings to bishop 4.
I
baby. What do you
did.
think?"
That turned them all on. I
Oh,
got a rook.
yes.
That might be why it took way more than 63 times. Bill, Dwight was so confident he would actually help the competition.
Oh, yeah, Mike Windsor. Mike Windsor was a guy that went to Central Michigan, and they weren't expecting a lot out of him. Stones will say that he was a great competitor. He didn't know he was going to be one of his challengers, but Stones would actually, at one point in time, would give Mike Windsor advice, like, "Oh, this is what you should do." But at the end, in the finals of the NCAA championships, Windsor was matching Stones for every jump. And at the end, when Stones finally won, the Windsor came up and said, "Hey, man, can you help me out? Tell me what I'm doing wrong." And Stone said, "No, you're on your own now. You don't help the competition."
Yeah. He only would go so far. Dwight Stones, 2-time Olympic bronze medalist, 3-time world record holder in the high jump, and one of the most dominant track and field athletes of the 1970s and 80s, a trailblazer of the Fosbury Flop who soared to 7'7" and beyond. And Dwight joins us now on the Past Our Prime podcast. Hey, Dwight, looks beautiful where you are this morning. Thanks for coming on.
Hey, listen, I love being here. It's my happy place here in Canyon Lake, California. Real quick, there's the view from my balcony. You
that
can
is
see we
beautiful.
got swallows, a lot of swallows. We're very close to San Juan Capistrano, so we get a lot of swallows here at Canyon Lake.
I want to get a paddleboard and start get on that water.
There you go.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Is one of your boats
them
out
here.
there? Is that one of your boats out there, Dwight?
The one on the very end with the black cover is our boat, right on the end.
Nice.
Oh,
Nice.
well, we're going to come join you after this, all right?
Absolutely. We're here the entire month of July. You're welcome.
Okay, great. I'll get your address. There you are in June of 76 on the cover of the most preeminent sports magazine in the world, Sports Illustrated. What was that like for you, and what did it mean for you to be on the cover of SI?
It was a big deal back then. I mean, SI was it. It was a goal, I think, of any athlete in any sport to be able to make that cover. Real quick story, I had been promised the cover earlier in the year because I'd set the world record a bunch of times indoors. The 3 that you mentioned are outdoor records. I set the indoor world record 7 times. And I was actually promised the cover by a Sports Illustrated writer that was covering an event in LA. I broke the world record. And when the cover came out, it was a sheepdog from the Westminster Dog Show. Yeah, I should have kept my mouth shut about having been promised the cover.
Nice, nice. Well, this time you were front and center. The photo on the cover was taken at the NCAA championships in Long Beach. What do you remember most about that day? The atmosphere, the crowd, the moment you cleared 7'7"?
Well, a couple of things. First of all, I went back to school after being a amateur athlete for about 3 years. I went back to school at Long Beach State with 1 year of eligibility remaining because I wanted to win the NCAA indoor and outdoor championships, which I did. So here's my last collegiate meet of my career in a facility that I loved. I never lost a meet at Franklin Field in Philadelphia. I was excited to find out that's where the NCAA championships were. And I think that's part of the reason why I decided to go back to school. And everything was going along swimmingly. And this one kid, this freshman from Central Michigan, Mike Windsor, decided to have a career day and PR'd 3 times. And when we went to the world record, I only had him on a miss, but he had jumped and cleared 7.5 by a ton. And I thought, you know what, this kid is not even here. He's somewhere else. He's unconscious. If I miss this, he could clear this. And I lose the meet. I lose my world record. The whole reason of going back to school goes away, and there's no response. If I then clear it, I've tied his world record. So I was up first in the order, and I thought, you know what? I've tried this height 63 times at 21 meets over the last couple of years, and now it's the first time I've had somebody jumping at it with me. I've got to clear it now, which I did. It's not a great technical jump. I wouldn't want it as a training film, but out of desperation, I gathered everything I could together and cleared it. And then once I cleared it, I landed in the pit and I pointed back at him because he had pointed at me after I had jumped 7.5, and then he cleared 7.5. And I thought, okay, this has to happen. So I was very, very happy to clear that height. And then a couple of months later, after the Olympics, a disappointing rain-filled Olympics where I was lucky enough to finish third again, I was there 4 days after the Olympics, and I set the world record again. So I set 2 world records in 2 months at Franklin Field.
Now, going back to Windsor, was there a point, at least I read, that you were actually giving advice to him? And how did that stop?
Well, I will tell you, we had a day off between qualifying and finals, which I hate, and that it's now the norm in an international competition, international championships. You know, what do you do with that day in between is always kind of been my look at it. I had been scheduled to give a clinic for a good coach friend of mine, George Dales, may he rest in peace. I could never resist George when he would ask me to do something, so I relented, said yes on Friday. I show up to the clinic at 11 o'clock in the morning, and half the final high jump field was at my clinic. So he was one of those kids, and I was so supremely confident at that point. I didn't think it mattered what advice I might give to one of my competitors. And my main competitors would, of course, never ask me anything, but this is a young freshman. So I was only too happy to help out. And he took what I told him to heart, obviously. And then he came out to Long Beach after the Olympic trials, and we trained together for a couple of weeks, after the NCAA meet. And we trained together for a couple of weeks before the Olympic trials, because I thought, there's always one guy that you don't expect on the team in the high jump. It just seemed to be historically that way, one wild card who you would never predict. I thought maybe this is the kid. And he pushed me to the world record at the NCAA meet. Maybe he could push me to make the Olympic team and win the gold medal in Montreal. Unfortunately, he was unable to sustain the training very well and did not do well at the trials. But he had a nice little career for a couple of years at Central Michigan and jumped 7.5 and a quarter career best. So he had a nice little career. He was a very talented guy, good kid, and was an integral part of my, this Friday, I think it'll be 50 years, the anniversary of that world record at the NCAA meet.
50 years, gosh, that when you say that, it brings me back. But you talk about world records. What does it feel like? Because you've obviously done it a lot of times, and the way you say it is like, yeah, I set a world record. What does it feel like to actually set a world record?
That was always my goal when I started jumping when I was 9.5. I started jumping because I saw Ukrainian-born Soviet Valery Brumel set his last world record, 7.5 3/4 in the dual meet between the U.S. and the Soviet Union in Moscow. You know, I'm a Cold War kid like you guys are, and really kind of was taken in by the whole idea, you know, that if we win the track meet, we're better than they are. Which is so stupid, but a lot of us actually believed all that. So here I am. I'm idolizing the Soviet guy because he's the reason I started high jumping. And I thought to myself, you know, I really want to do this seriously, and I'd like to break the world record. You know, 100,000 people in Lenin Stadium in Moscow went nuts when he cleared that height, and he did it all by himself. Nobody set a pick for him. Nobody passed him a ball. Nobody threw a block. It was just him. So I like that idea. I like the idea of individual athletics. So as my career wound through from 9.5 to 18, and I made my first Olympic team at 18. I was the youngest member of that team in 1972, and I won a medal in those games in Munich. I thought, you know, I'm close to doing this. I'm close to my goal. Pat Matzdorf, the American, actually broke Valery Brumel's world record, which was not a good day for me when I found that out, because I wanted to be the guy to break the world record of my mentor. And 10 days, almost 10 years to the day that I started high jumping, literally within 2 weeks of the first day I ever started high jumping, which was July 22nd, 1963, I set the world record in Munich when I jumped 7.6 in the Olympic Stadium 10 months after the Olympics. And I will tell you, reaching that goal so quickly and so early, that's one of my favorite jumps ever, of course. And it was a big barrier. It was 2.30 meters, which is a height that a lot of experts in our sport said no man will be able to ever clear that height, which of course man has cleared much higher than that since then. So it was a big deal, and it had a lot of reverberations, especially in Europe, because that's where I did it. I did it in Munich, Germany. And the relief of actually achieving a goal that you had for 10 years is hard to describe. And then you get a little complacent, I have to tell you. When I started setting world records indoors, and the record indoors was very soft when I started jumping at it, just because of the constraints of the indoor facility for the Fosbury flop. As soon as I got the pit move so I could use my full run up, it was kind of a piece of cake. So I set the world record 7 times in 2 years, and eventually matched my outdoor best. And I thought, okay, now we're talking, you know. And I always, and through my career, that mark, 2.30 meters, 6.5, whenever the bar would go to that, that was a height that I took very seriously. So I didn't jump much higher than that. I ended up jumping 7.8 in 1984 to make my 3rd Olympic team. But that's pretty routine height now for guys who are jumping well enough to be on the podium at the Olympics and World Championships. But 52 years ago, 53 years ago, this July, it was a big deal.
Still is. That's amazing. I know you mentioned him a little bit, but how much of an impact did Dick Fosbury have on your career? Did you follow him, or did you try to be like him?
I didn't even know Dick, to be honest with you. I jumped against him twice in my life, and that was at a meet in Berkeley, the Kennedy Games in 1972, between the NCAA meet and the trials. I won that meet and set a personal best, and beat some truly legitimate Olympic contenders. Dick was not an Olympic contender in 1972. When he came back in 1968 from the Olympics in Mexico City, he had been thrown out of engineering school at Oregon State, which is the reason why he went to Oregon State instead of Oregon. And that department basically said to him, if you're going to continue this track thing, you're not welcome here at this engineering school. So he said, okay, I'll stop. You know, the Olympics were very late that year in Mexico. They were 3rd week in October when they're over. So class had been in session up in Oregon State more than a month. And there was some hoopla, obviously, after his victory. So he came in very late, and they were not amused. So he basically promised them he was, you know, going to dump track and do engineering. He managed to win the NCAA meet in 1969. I don't know how, but he did. And then he really put track to bed. And I think he got a lot of encouragement from his coach, Bernie Wagner, with the Olympics coming up and him being the reigning champion, to kind of take a somewhat serious look at it. So he did jump in some meets. He did not jump well. He did not make the final at the Olympic trials, which is the second and last time I competed against him. And I really didn't know him and didn't get to know him until some flame got ignited in him by the Greek organizing committee for the Athens Games, and it brought him back to the sport. And he was a very successful civil engineer by then in Idaho, and had the time to devote to it, and really got involved. And we eventually ended up being vice presidents of the U.S. Olympians sort of veteran organization. And that's when I got to know him. What a great guy. I mean, really salt of the earth kind of guy, very humble. When you consider what a revolution he started in my event in our sport, I mean, it's as revolutionary as a fiberglass pole in pole vaulting, as far as I'm concerned. And it changed everything, especially for me and for anybody who used his style to have any success in our sport. Owes him a huge debt of gratitude. He contracted cancer, he beat it, and it finally consumed him a few years ago, and we lost him. But I became very good friends with him and really kind of dug into him a little bit. He was really a very, very smart, nice guy who really minimized his impact genuinely on the sport. I'm nowhere near humble like Dick Fosbury, trust me.
So you talked about how revolutionary that was. It changed the whole sport of high jumping. When you first started, first of all, what gravitated you to high jumping? And when you first started, did you do it the previous way, where you almost like hurdled it, as opposed to going backwards and leaping over a bar with your back to the bar?
Yeah, as I mentioned, I wanted to play baseball. That was my passion. But I grew up in a place where there was no little league, so I'm 9 years old. I'm playing catch. I'm playing pickle. I'm playing over the line. I lived 3 doors down from the elementary school. We'd scale the fence and play softball. I never played hardball in my life. I only played softball. So, but I thought I was going to be a professional baseball player. So I'm home on a Saturday afternoon, I guess Sunday afternoon it would have been, because of a delayed broadcast by ABC Wider World of Sports. I'm home on a Sunday afternoon. All my friends are out of town. It's middle of summer. They're at camp. They're at grandma's. Who knows where they are? But every single one of my friends I had on my list, my phone book to call to play baseball were gone. So I'm flipping around on the TV looking for a Dodger game, and I find accidentally Wide World of Sports, World of Sports' coverage of the U.S.-Soviet duel meet in Moscow that summer, 1963. And I happen to come back. They're coming back from a commercial. They're wide on Lenin Stadium, which is full, and I'm going, oh, track meet. But I don't see anybody running around on the track, and they're slowly but surely focusing in on the infield. And there's this one guy staring at these standards with a bar and some sawdust. And he takes a couple of walking steps, a couple of jogging steps, 3 quick running steps, and he flings his body over the bar in that terribly inefficient straddle style, which is what everyone was using at the time. And it's a world record, and the crowd goes nuts. And I'm like, wow, I got to do that. And as fate would have it, my dad was a contractor. My mom had a licensed childcare business. So I had lots of wood, lots of nails, lots of bricks, and lots of mattresses. So I cobbled together, and I had my friend Bobby Flores, who lived 4 doors down, who had a bamboo pole. Now, why did he have a bamboo pole? I have no idea. But I knew he wasn't home because I couldn't get him on the phone to play catch. So I scaled his back fence. We lived up against an alley. So I scaled his back fence. I grabbed the pole, and that completed my high jump setup. And I had a backyard with asphalt, but there's nobody in the backyard. I lived on a pretty main street. So I took schlepped all this stuff out to the front yard. And now I have an audience. So I'm jumping over a bamboo pole with bricks and rags and 2x4s and nails and all that, trying to remember what Valerie Brumel had just done on TV. There was no outlet for that. The only track there is when you're 9.5 is, hey, I'm fast, I can beat you. Okay, let's race. Well, I wasn't fast, so I didn't participate in anything like that. There was nothing organized for track and field. So I did it for my own entertainment for years until middle school, where it became spring, and there was a standards and bar and a pile of sawdust. I was an 8th grader out in the field. I went, oh, I've been doing that for years. I was 13 or 14. And I'm jumping the old way, but we knew about Dick by then. Dick started doing this like in 1964, 65 at Medford High School. And the only reason he was able to do it was because the guy who invented the foam rubber landing pit, Don Gordon, was good friends with his high school coach somehow. So Medford High School had a foam rubber landing pit before the University of Oregon did.
Wow.
So imagine the fate for that. The guy who's inventing this style, and you do have to read the book. The book's fantastic. Let me plug it now. The Wizard of Foz by Bob Welch. It's the whole story of how Dick developed this thing and Dick's life and his motivations and everything. It's a great read. It's a great author. It's a great story. And Dick started jumping backwards because he couldn't clear his throat jumping the old way. And he was sure he was going to be cut from the track team. Well, you guys, we both know track's a no-cut sport in high school. Unless you're a behavioral problem or don't dress out or you don't punch the coach in the face, you're on the track team. But he thought he was going to get cut from the track team unless he had a PR that day. And he'd been fooling around with this lay down scissors thing into sawdust, which, 5'6" or 5'7" is not such a big deal. And he finally he gulped and said, okay, I'm going to try it. And he PR'd like by 4 or 5 inches, won the meet. And they started working on developing it and refining it. And I think he jumped 6'9" in high school, which at the time was pretty good mark. Ended up going to Oregon State, and he makes the Olympic team, third at the Olympic trials in 1968, and had to set a personal best to do that. And then goes to Mexico City and wins the thing. And if he had not won, or if he had not been on the podium, eventually the style would have evolved, and we would have all done it, but it would have taken much longer, I think. But without Dick, and without, more importantly, I think, almost, the foam rubber landing pit, there's no Fosbury flop. And it takes a while for it to be developed, I think. But it's a natural progression. Track went from dirt tracks to rubberized tracks. That changed everything with regards to times. Pole vault went from bamboo to steel to fiberglass. That changed everything. And the high jump went from Western roll to straddle to Fosbury flop, and that changed everything.
So what type of an athlete does it take to be a high jumper? Because I look at it and it's like, okay, I'm a basketball player and I'm about to do a reverse dunk, but instead of my arms being over the basket, I'm going to flip my whole body over the basket. What kind of athleticism do you need?
It's not dissimilar from going in for a layup or a slam dunk. It's the same pattern of steps, the last 4 steps. And I get a lot of kids that are in basketball, obviously, that I coach. So that's my sort of segue for them, if they can kind of pattern themselves and reproduce that rhythm at the end of the run-up. I don't have a lot of vertical leaping ability. The name of the movie was actually wrong. White men can jump. They just can't leap for the most part. And I'm certainly an example of that. What I did, first of all, I was 6'5", which did not hurt me. But when I started jumping this way, I was 5'11", but built very much like Dick. Dick was an inch shorter than me and outweighed me by like 7 pounds. So when I saw the way he was built, I went, boy, I'm going to be built like that guy, I think. It really is more about learning how to get in positions to transfer horizontal velocity to vertical lift. That's what the high jump is, and that's what it always has been. It's the only event in the sport where at the very last moment, in the last contact to the ground, everything is supposed to go vertical, 0 degrees top dead center. So it's unique amongst all our events in track and field. And on the men's side, it's the shortest event in track and field. So there's a lot of details, but the broad strokes are, there's no perfect body type. I mean, the 2 American record holders are under 6'1". They have spectacular leaping ability, and they learn to become great jumpers and great technicians. So it's really a combination of things. I just understood, my coach and I understood somehow how it worked. I don't know how we knew that. I'm no physicist, but I really, really understand how to get from A to B, put myself in position and maximize the angles and get my body where it needs to be. And the hard part is trying to teach others. A point of a little bit of bragging. The kid that I coached just defended his title at the California State meet, J.J. Harrell from Notre Dame High School out in the Valley. He jumped 7'2" on Saturday. He jumped 7 feet as a sophomore. This is a white kid who can leap. And now he's 6'5", weighs 160 maybe, all wet. And he just jumped 7'2" by a ton on Saturday. He's going to USC on a full ride. And it's been my pleasure to coach him the last 3 years. He's won the state meet twice. He was a runner-up as a sophomore. He's had a spectacular career, and I expect that he'll continue to have a spectacular career at USC.
What does that mean for you now to be passing your knowledge on to other people, to be a teacher now?
Well, I've been doing that for a little over 30 years. And my philosophy on it is, I've been working in television. This is my 49th year, 50th year, I should say. 49th anniversary was in February. And once in a while, I get a chance to do a little bit of education and analysis on specialty sports, on technical events, jumps, throws. And the only event I do analysis on now, because I'm the play-by-play guy on the events that we cover, is the high jump. And very rarely do I have enough time to really point things out during a broadcast, because field events get very, very little amount of time. So being able to pass on what I know to a kid that's receptive and has the talent to do it is really satisfying for me, because it's doing nobody any good inside my head. And I really just understand so basically how it works. And it's so simplistic to me that what I had to learn is to suppress my own frustration over the amount of time it takes and has taken to relate that to a young person, a high school kid who want, they want instant gratification. They want the silver bullet. They want something that's going to improve their personal best 4, 5, 6 inches. That's why they come to me. And I explained to the parents very quickly, that's not how it works. This is very, very incremental, like anything else. It's repetition, 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 and it's correct repetition, repetition. I said, practice does not make perfect. Practice makes permanent. Only perfect practice makes perfect. And I said, that has been my credo my whole life. And my high school coach understood that. I was lucky. I had an Olympian for a high school coach. He was an Olympic 800-meter runner, but he knew he was going to be a coach. And while he was a world-class athlete, he picked the brain of every great athlete in every event that he could get in front of to learn the basics of every event in the sport. So he understood how the high jump worked, and he knew what my strengths were with the old style. I eventually jumped 7-1 with the old style. I love the old style. It's just not efficient. And you have to do a lot more weightlifting, and you have to have a lot more tendon strength than I have for me to have been a world-class jumper with the old style. So thankfully, Dick came along at the right time for me. But he understood how it worked. And between the two of us, we just broke it down and taught it to each other. And I was still going to him well into my professional career, because I would hit roadblocks and I would go into slumps, and I needed a fresh set of eyes, and he knew me well. And within 5 to 10 minutes, he had fixed whatever it was on me that was broken. And mostly I was getting too detailed. I was from time to time forgetting the fundamentals, which tends to happen. And he brought me back to the fundamentals, the 3 or 4 things that he really understood what to do and what to tell me and how to make it work. And he put me back on track more than once. But to have a kid like this, I knew this kid was good. He jumped 6'5" off his other foot when he was 13 at the AAU Junior Nationals. So he was on my radar very, very early. He's had some injury issues, which I think he's growing out of now. Obviously, he's growing out of them. He jumped 7'2" by a ton on Saturday. So he's probably going to be the last athlete I coach. Might as well go out on top.
Yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm. Dwight, you were 18 years old, you mentioned, when you made your first Olympic team in 1972. 10 days into the games and just 3 days before you were scheduled to compete, the Munich massacre takes place. How did that tragedy affect you personally and your ability to focus on your event?
Well, at 18 years old, I knew nothing about politics. I knew nothing about international relations. I knew nothing about what was going on here. When I met my high school coach at an assembly my sophomore year, a week after I turned 15, when he asked me what my goals were, I said, well, I want to be on the next Olympic team, because I just watched the Olympics in Mexico City. The U.S. team dominated, greatest track team ever. And he did not dismiss me at all. He looked at me and said, well, then we better get to work, which as a coach, what a great response.
Yeah.
I had jumped 5'6" with the straddle at that time. That was my PR. And I'm telling a man who had been on an Olympic team, I did not know that at the time, that I want to be on the next Olympic team. Yeah, well, guess what? I was on the next Olympic team. I was the youngest member of that team. I won those trials. And I will tell you that the Eugene Registered Guard said that the Olympic trials system has to be changed. Any system would let these two knuckleheads, Dwight Stones and Bruce Jenner, on the Olympic team when the world record holder in the high jump didn't make the team, when a medal favorite had a bad day and didn't make the Olympic team, the decathlon. This system has to be changed. Dwight Stones and Bruce Jenner, who dominated their events over the ensuing 4 years. Of course, Bruce had an amazing Olympics in Montreal, setting the world record, winning a gold medal, and everything else. So I'm a big fan of the Olympic trial system. Obviously, it allowed me to come out of nowhere and start my career at that level. But making that team was my goal. I mean, I said, I've earned this. This was my goal. This was my dream. I've had that dream now for 4 years. That's long enough. I belong here. I deserve to be here. And I also knew no American had ever failed to medal at the Olympic Games. So when my two teammates didn't make the final, and I was the only American in the final, I was like, okay, I guess it's on me. And when I jumped high enough to be on the podium, I pretty much at 18 didn't know how to reset the goal. So I was pretty satisfied. Well, reached the goal. Here I am. I'm third. But in 4 years, I'm going to be up there. And that's the way I looked at things. I didn't really, I think, grasp the enormity of it because it was so incremental in my mind. I had gone methodically. When I put the bar up at 7 feet in high school when I was a sophomore, and it was 1.5 feet over my personal best, I asked my coach, I said, how on earth, I have to jump higher than that in 3 years. How on earth am I going to do that? And because he was the great coach that he was, he said, 1 inch at a time. And it's so true. That's exactly what we did. It was 1 inch at a time. How can we cut this a little bit faster? How can we do this a little bit better? How can we do this a little more efficiently? And that's how we worked at it. I mean, that's pretty much all I did in high school was jump. I was very physically immature. And so I jumped. I jumped off both feet. I jumped every way you could think of. We pushed the pit further back dangerously and played stupid, dangerous games of jumping. But I really learned how my body worked in the air and what worked and what didn't work. So I had thousands of jumps in my database by the time I was a high school senior, and just understood how it worked. And it just all came together at an indoor meet my senior year in January 1971. And from that point forward, there was really no stopping me. I could already see a lot of light at the end of that tunnel. And I was certain I was going to make that team.
You're considered a favorite for gold 4 years later in Montreal. You mentioned briefly rainy, windy, not ideal conditions you certainly did not enjoy. Looking back, when you think of the 76 Olympics, what kind of emotions do you have?
They're not great. They're not positive. I did an indoor meet up there that February, I want to say, and I toured the Olympic facilities, and I knew about the union issues and all the other problems with the construction, and they were behind and all that other stuff. So I knew what was going on. At that point, I booked my travel to go back home from Montreal the day after the opening ceremonies. I was going to march in the opening ceremonies, but I couldn't stay there and train. I had 11 roommates, 1 bathroom. With a track that was right next to the dorms was going to be way too crowded. And I said, this is not a good environment for me. So I went home for like 9 days, 8 days. The track's the second week, and my event is at the end, the last 2 days of the Olympics. So it's 2 weeks after the opening ceremony. So I went home for 9 days, I want to say, or 10 days. And I absolutely, flipped out on the organizing committee about what a lousy job they had done. And they really phoned it in and didn't take the consideration of the athletes. The food was terrible, and I'll pretty much eat anything. And the food was terrible. And then I went back up there and just got hammered by the press and created not a great environment for myself. But I'm one of those guys at that time, you could set a bomb off next to me and it wouldn't affect me. I compartmentalize very, very well. And so I didn't care. But it did not create a positive environment for the competition. But I sold a lot of tickets to the qualifying round that wouldn't have been sold. I'll tell you that. A lot of French Canadians that came there to boo me. And when I missed my first attempt at 7-1, it's the only time I've missed a height in the qualifying. I take qualifying very seriously. I said, okay, we're not going down to the third attempt here. Just not going to do this. So I cleared it by a mile on my second attempt and tried to let the crowd know, you're not affecting me negatively. You aren't. You're affecting your own guys negatively. And one of their guys who really was good, French Canadian kid, had jumped 7.4 didn't make the final. I mean, he just freaked out over the environment. And one of his teammates, who I knew well, was really giving me the cold shoulder. I said, Claude, you know me. You think I would say what it said that I said? They quoted me as saying I hate French Canadians, which is absurd. Why would, first of all, ridiculous, but why would I say, even if I felt that way, why would I say that about a group of people, 75% of which are going to be my crowd on the final day of my competition? Why would I say that? I mean, I'm aware enough of PR and marketing to know better than to say something like that. But that was the environment, unfortunately. And then, of course, it just torrentially rained. I mean, I saw the forecast and I said, you know what? It's a good place to jump. It was a really good place to jump. And the world record had never been set in the high jump in the Olympic final. And I said to my teammate, I said, I'm going to set the world record here as long as it doesn't rain. And when we got out there, I was first in the order, which I do not like. But I said, okay, that means I got to clear every height on the first attempt by a lot, which I don't like to do either. So when the bar went to 7.3 and it started to rain pretty seriously, it's a good thing I was up first, because if I had been up third or fourth, not a chance in hell I would have made that height. There was enough water that accumulated in that 5 or 6 minute period that it would have been too treacherous for me to run my run up. I was pretty fast on the run up. So I cleared 7.3 by a ton on my first attempt. And I came back to my teammate who was already out. And I told him, I said, Bill, if it stops raining this moment, I'll set the world record. If it does not stop raining this moment, that's the last height I'm going to clear. And I don't know if it's going to be enough to get on the podium. Well, it rained more. In fact, there's only one time in history that it's rained harder, and they were escorting animals 2x2 into an ark. So it was 82 degrees outside. It was not cold, but it was rainy, and they had poured the track in such a way where there was really not much in the way of drainage. Because remember, that was the Montreal Expo baseball stadium. The track was temporary, so they really didn't go to too many lengths to have drainage be a very important concept. So it just happened there was a lake right in the middle of my run where I turned, and there was just no way on earth I was going to be able to hold. So luckily, a couple of Russian or Soviet athletes made a couple of stupid passes, and my no misses first attempt at 7.3 was enough to win me a bronze medal. I was very disappointed. And when I look back on it, I was damn lucky to be on the podium at all. And I'm really happy every time an athlete is celebrating being on the podium, because we're in a culture where if you don't win, which means finishing first, of course, why'd you bother? Second place is the first loser. You don't win silver, you lose gold. Thank you, Nike. Thanks for inspiring an entire society of youth to feel like they're losers if they finish second. Anyway, I digress. So, and 4 days later, I went back to my, obviously favorite stadium, Franklin Field, and I set the world record, which was obviously satisfying. It proved to myself, not that I needed to have it proven to me, but proved to others how ready I was. And I ended up being ranked number 1 in the world that year, which that and 475 will get me a venti vanilla latte at Starbucks. But that was important to me, that I beat the Olympic champion. He was not number 1 in the world. I was, which is the last time I was number 1 in the world. And it allowed me to just sort of swallow my pride and go, okay, you had no plan B. You had no alternate run-up. You had no way in which to deal with those conditions. And it's not like it's never going to rain again. So you better develop one. And over the course of a few years, I developed an alternate run-up and an alternate way of jumping. I was going to jump a PR with it, but I would have jumped better at the Olympics. I don't know if I would have won. It's possible, but I would have jumped better than I did in Montreal. But I went into Montreal with no plan B. And unfortunately, I had a day where it rained torrentially, and I was damn lucky to win another medal.
All right. I would like to think that that's also damn good to win a medal since you overcame those conditions. But you know what, Dwight? When I was young, I obviously just met you now, but I knew you back in 78 because they used to set up in our junior high a high jump thing. So at PE, and we would do it, and we would know about you and Dick Fosbury because of the flop. But also, what you brought is you put track and field on the map from a showmanship point of view. I've watched your stuff. When you would go over the bar, you would stand and put your chest out and look at the bar. How did that come about? How did you get to that point where you go, I'm going to put this on the map by being a showman?
I will tell you, I have not invented anything. All I've done is try to repurpose what's already there. For example, with Dick Fosbury. Fosbury had a very strange arm movement that he used. It was effective for him, but my coach and I looked at it and said, why is he not using both his arms like I did in the straddle? I had really good arms in the straddle. I said, why isn't he using double arm? That transfers force so much better. He said, well, let's develop one then. You have great arms. Let's figure it out. He said, but you're going to have to curtail your speed until you can make the arms work in harmony with what's going on the lower body. And that's how we started, basically. So I just repurposed what Dick did. Dick's still the most beautiful over the bar, I think, ever. It's just nobody better than him. Muhammad Ali was an idol of mine. And what I learned, and I hated him, of course, like many of us did growing up until we fell in love with him. He always bragged what he would do, but he always delivered. And I thought, all you have to do is deliver. I can say outrageous things if I want to. I can predict things as long as they come true. And I didn't have as much competition as I would have liked to have at that time in the States, especially. So I had to create an environment where I put pressure on myself. So what I did is I would say, oh, those guys, they're just the warm-up band. I don't even start jumping until they're done. I'd say stuff like that, which is really, really not great, but it does sell newspapers and it does promote track meets. And the people who don't like me, and there were plenty that did not like my style of showmanship, I noticed that they didn't get a refund or a discount if I won, if they were betting on me to lose. So I didn't care about being liked or loved. I just cared about jumping high and winning things. So for that 4 years between 72 and 76, that's pretty much who I was. I was setting world records. I was beating people senseless. My idea at the time was I'm just going to beat everybody that I compete against at their own track where they practice. So they have no reason to think that they can win in Montreal. That was my philosophy. Mm-hmm. So after that did not turn out well, I kind of repurposed myself and said, okay, I've established myself and I've established my event as one of the most popular in track and field. And truly, I think it was. Maybe the 100 and maybe the mile were more popular, but you can't name another event that was at the time. So I thought, okay, we need to redo this. I need to become a kinder, gentler emperor. So that's what I did. I kind of repurposed myself, but it took them a while to catch on to what I was doing. I would oftentimes coach myself while I was competing. You know, a lot of those jumps that you saw that you commented on, mm-hmm. You know, I'm looking at it and going, and I'm calculating in my head. It's okay. That was about an 85, maybe an 87 jump, and I didn't touch it. So I'm capable of jumping X. I had a whole database of calculations on what a jump would feel like, how I cleared it, where I landed. And I would sometimes hold my nose because even though I cleared it, not a good jump. And all of that was signaling to my competitors that I'm not even thinking about you. I'm thinking about, I might as well be jumping in practice here. I'm just jumping high in practice. So I did a lot of that. I would say things 3 steps out like, oh, I got this. I mean, I timed my run-up during the competition to see what my run-up times were. Just things like that. Anything to unnerve my competition. Because in sports, if you can get your opponent to think more about you than they're thinking about themselves, they're doomed. You can't think about what other people are doing, especially in individual sports, because there's nothing you can do to affect their performance short of cheating. And anything that you can do that isn't cheating is, you know, all is fair in love and war. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of how I looked at it. Anything I can do to unnerve my competition, that's what I'm going to do. And I had a reputation for that. I had a reputation for saying outrageous things, but I never invent anything. I just repurposed what had already been invented. If I know it's good, I'm like, that's good. I'm gonna co-opt that. So I did that with Dick's Fosbury flop. I did it with Muhammad Ali's braggadocio, but you got to know at some point they catch up, they catch on, and you aren't able to produce anymore. So you need to button it up and be a little more human, which is what I've tried to do. But a lot of people still remember me from my on-track persona, and that's not who I am. You know, there's very few people who know who I am off the track. So when people comment on things that I have to say on social media, I realize that they remember me from those days, and there's nothing I can do or say to change that, and I'm okay with that. I'm when I look back, I'm okay with the way I did it. I don't have regrets with regard to the way I handled my career from a marketing and public relations standpoint. It did help me a lot, and I think it helped promote the event.
Well, also, you had just said that if you're going to say those things, you have to back it up. And I know in the magazine, they had quoted you as saying you were going to win the gold, and you did. So it had to put people on notice that when you say something, you're going to be the guy that's going to come through.
Yeah, and I know my competitors are reading those things. You know, when I say I'm going to jump this height or I'm going to beat these people or whatever it is, there's no way they can get that out of their heads. They just can't, until they evolve to the point where they can. And I'd start to notice that guys were either they changed coaches or they discovered something or they learned something. I mean, my competitors probably thought I didn't really even look at them or think about them. Believe me, I researched them as much as I could, and I watched very carefully what they were doing. And I knew who the guys were who, if they ever figured it out or ever had a coach to help them figure it out, they would be dangerous. And if they started to figure it out, I would engage them, which just engaging them would throw them off because I didn't engage anybody. And I would work on them psychologically as best I could. Again, didn't invent that. Al Order invented that. He didn't invent it, but I mean, he was vocal about how he would mess with his competitors. Again, I didn't invent it. I just co-opted it. And like I said, anything is fair as long as you're not cheating. For example, if I condescended to catch a guy's step, if somebody had the balls to say to me, "Hey, Dwight, would you catch my step?" And few did. If I said yes, that creates a verbal contract that I'm going to tell you and show you exactly where you placed your foot at what angle. I'm not going to lie to you. So if I created that contract, if I agreed to that contract, that's what I did. Anything other than that is cheating. But that'll also be an opportunity for me to say, no, I don't really have time for that. Or no, find somebody else to catch your step. Something, just something to throw them off. But I wouldn't step in front of somebody. I wouldn't stand back at them and talk to them while they're concentrating. Just things like that you don't do. You know, it's etiquette. It's not fair. But anything other than that to get in their head, absolutely. And it helped plenty of times. I go to meets where I knew I wasn't ready because I was in a heavy training phase, usually in the spring here in the States, in small meets that I didn't really care about. They were like competitive practice. And I had goals and I had expectations of what I would jump. And I very rarely believed that I would win or jump high. It happened accidentally a couple of times, but not often. And I knew guys were going to beat me that had no business beating me, but it wasn't going to affect my ranking. It wasn't going to affect how I did at the Nationals. It wasn't going to affect how I did at the Olympics or the World Championships. So I just accepted that I was going to get beat by people and not jump that high. And they would get temporarily buoyed by that. And then a month later, I'd be 7 pounds lighter and jump 4 inches higher. And they would wonder, what the hell just happened? You sucked a month ago, and now you're jumping at the world record. And I knew, okay, you don't know how to train then. Your coach has not taught you how to train, how to periodize, how to peak properly, and how to come down from the peak and go back up to the peak. My high school coach taught me how to do that. I've known how to do that since I was 17 years old. And when I see athletes at the elite level miss that peak, I'm like, how can you not peak properly? Why would you jump high at that meet that means nothing? And 3 weeks later, when you got to make a team, you can't clear your throat. How does that happen? Are you mental, or did you not know how to train?
So you have been an announcer for so long. And I believe, wasn't there a track meet where you both did analyst work and competed? But my question is also, what is it like announcing an event and then as opposed to performing an event? Do you get the same rush? Is it a different feeling?
Oh, it's a completely different feeling. And I did it for years and years during my career. I did TV for 11 years. Yes, 11 years during my career. So most of my career. I started in 1977 was my first broadcast. And the producer, he didn't hire me. I was hired by some executive. And the night before the track meet, when the production meeting, it became clear he did not know I was competing in the meet. And I thought, does this guy not read the paper? For God's sakes, the producer. And I was 23. And so I said, I'm getting the distinct feeling that you don't know that I'm competing tomorrow night. And he stopped the meeting and looked at me horrified. What? I said, yeah, I've been doing publicity for the meet all week. So yeah, I'm competing. Well, how's that going to work? He asked me. He asked me how that's going to work. I said, well, the meet's not live. So it seems to me I'm going to do some interviews and I'm going to do some kind of an opening or something. I mean, I knew how TV worked a little bit. And we're gonna voice it in post. So, I don't really see a problem. Well, what if you're up when we need you? I said, it's an invitational indoor meet. It's not the Olympics. I'll just ask them to pass me. You can do that? I said, these officials have been my officials since I'm in junior high school. I mean, yeah, I can do that. Okay. And then the greatest sentence ever in TV. So he looks at me and goes, I mean, you could tell the resignation on his face. Too late to hire somebody else. It just dropped a bomb on his broadcast. It was me and Dave Waddle, by the way, were the analysts that were being sort of auditioned. Brent Musburger was the play-by-play guy. And he says, okay, but if you don't jump well, don't blame the broadcast. I mean, everything I could do to not laugh out loud. I said, yeah, I'm in an individual event, so I have no one but myself to blame if I don't jump well. And actually, I'm in pretty good shape. I think I'm going to jump really well. He goes, okay. So 24 hours later, he had figured it out. And he decided, okay, I'm going to make this kid put his money where his mouth is. So I did my stand-up the first time, and I mentioned every event in the field. It took 2 minutes probably. And he went, Dwight, that was great. Now, I need you to say that in 45 seconds. I said, I can't say that in 45 seconds. He says, I know. So pick one of those events that you think is going to be really good. And then I want the rest of it for you to talk about you competing in the high jump. I said, okay. So after 4 or 5 takes, probably, I did that. And he said, okay, I'll let you know when we need you. And I jumped 7-4 that night. I won. I did the interviews. I said, oh, by the way, I have a track meet Saturday night too. So I got to be on a plane by 11 in the morning. Oh, well, we'll have it done. You have a track meet on Saturday night? I said, I have track meets every weekend. I got to make a living. There's not many of these TV gigs, that I'm going to be doing. So, of course, it went later than it was supposed to in post. We were up all damn night. And so that became my gimmick. I learned how to do sports television because my gimmick of competing in the meet that I was broadcasting was just too delicious for TV. They just loved it. And I jumped well because I felt like it was another piece of pressure and another opportunity to blow my competitors' minds. Guys, listen, I got to go up and do this TV thing. I'll be back, I don't know, 5 minutes, 7 minutes, 8 minutes, whatever, as you were. So it was all good for me. Plus, I made some extra money, which is pretty awesome because in the 70s, we weren't supposed to be making any money, right? So it was a great thing. And then when I retired, ESPN had come online and there was a little bit more coverage of track and field. And I was able to continue making a living. Became a real estate agent at the same time in order to supplement my income. And, I kept doing it. They kept hiring me. Everybody was hiring me. And I got a reputation for, what you see is what you get. I tell it like it is. I don't sugarcoat stuff. And that's unpopular with some people. I can be very critical at times when I think it's necessary and warranted. And I can be praiseworthy when I think it's necessary and warranted. But I am not going to change who I am. But yes, it is to answer your question, it's a different, not rush, I wouldn't say, but it's a different feeling of satisfaction. Like I just did the SEC championships a couple of weeks ago. And that broadcast went really well. I mean, I'm in the middle of it and going, is it me or is this going really well? And after we were done I went to the producer who I've known forever. And I said, Rich, was that as good as I think it was? He said, yeah, it was. That was a really, really good broadcast. I said, okay, good. It's not just me then. So they happen from time to time. They're never perfect, but they can be better or worse, depending on things over which sometimes you have no control. But I love it. I love my sport. It's still my favorite sport. And I'm down to 4 events a year, but they're good events. I cover the best conference in the country in the NCAA. I cover the SEC, which is by far and away the best conference. I get to see a lot of the future stars that are going to be on Olympic teams and world championship teams when they're just kids. And then I cover the national championships indoors and outdoors. So if I got 4 meets that I'm going to cover, those would be the 4 that I would pick. And as long as they keep hiring me, I'm going to keep doing it.
Lightning strikes as answers try. Buzzers ring, chaos in the air. Trivia time, true.
Since you're in the Long Beach State Hall of Fame, it's going to be a Long Beach State question, okay?
Okay.
All right. True or false? Sylvester Stallone got a degree from Cal State Long Beach.
Wow, that's a good question.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to say true.
No, it's false, but here's where the really bad pun comes in. John Rambo did.
Oh,
And Rambo, obviously a basketball player and a high jumper at
Olympic
Long
bronze
Beach State.
medalist.
Yes, yes. And when I saw John Rambo, I said, damn, isn't that Stallone's character? But
They drew
I was going to ask you about...
Quick story.
Yeah.
When I went to Long Beach State and became eligible, I had to be there for a year to become eligible. And John and I were at a banquet of some kind. And I said, John, I'm going to break your world record, your school record by a half a foot. It was 7'1" and a quarter. He said, in order to do that, you'd have to break the record like 2 or 3 times. I said, yeah, I know. But the 4 days after the Olympic Games, when I got a bronze, I jumped 7'7" and a quarter. And that's the Long Beach State school record. And will always be.
I just got to say, Dwight, thank God for Bobby Flores and that bamboo pole that you
Right?
Yes.
It propelled you to new heights. No pun intended.
Yep.
I can't thank you enough for your time, your stories, and giving us a glimpse into those truly great times from back in the 70s. For guys like us, you truly were the guy for track and field, and we just loved it. So you've given track and field so much, and obviously you're still going strong. So thank you so much. We're extremely grateful for your time.
Thanks. And tune into ESPN2 next week for 4 days of live track and field national championship coverage from Eugene, Oregon.
There you go. He's selling it still.
Thank you, Dwight.
Thank you, Dwight.
Thanks, guys. Enjoyed meeting you.
We love guests like you who are really shy and introverted.
Yes.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Try to be a little more outspoken.
Thanks for the invitation. It was great.
Appreciate it.
So long.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Rookie cards of baseball, basketball, and football stars are iconic pieces of American history, and they have been outstanding investments over the last 50 years. Now, key issues of Sports Illustrated, professionally graded and encapsulated by CGC, have emerged as an exciting alternative to trading cards. ThePit.com is the leading online exchange for investment-grade sports magazines. General Manager Mark Humphreys offers Sports Illustrated first cover editions featuring stars like Kobe Bryant, LeBron James, Michael Jordan, Tom Brady, Patrick Mahomes, Derek Jeter, Ken Griffey Jr., and so many more. The CEO of ThePit.com is Mark Humphreys, an expert in the value of graded covers of Sports Illustrated. And Mark, 50 years ago, track and field was a big deal in the world of sports. Not so much anymore. Still, Dwight Stones was a well-known high jumper from the mid-'70s. Mark?
Yeah, Dwight appears here on the cover of Sports Illustrated for the first time, but not the last time. He would appear 8 years later during the Los Angeles Olympics, 1984. So Stones was the last American to ever hold the high jump record. And he extended that with a personal best of 2.34 meters in 1984. He's either preparing to his approach or sizing up the bar, getting himself psyched up here. I think it's a really neat cover. And I've seen some fabulous autographed copies of this issue on eBay, where Stones has a very distinctive signature, and he's adding the height in the signature as well. So he puts 7 feet 7 inches below it. I've seen currently issues available on eBay for that are signed for both the 1976 and 1984 issues. There are no sales records for this issue in graded form, like the issue we talked about last week. It's a moderately collectible issue because of the lack of collectors focusing on track and field at this point. There have only been a couple in newsstand, the more desirable form, graded, and they've both been at just 6.5, which is not a high grade. It's what we call mid-grade. So if you have a fabulous newsstand without a subscription label, that means copy of this Dwight Stones issue that is in very nice shape, you may have the best one that has currently been identified.
Only thepit.com offers competitive buy now and sell now quotes on graded magazines online, as well as many of the most popular modern PSA graded rookie cards, including Shohei Ohtani, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, Nikola Jokic, and Steph Curry. Trade sports stars like stocks at thepit.com. Putting the beans on the fire, jockey Angel Cordero Jr. arrived at Belmont Park dressed in Bold Forbes' racing colors, a black suit with a red vest, and was greeted like a hero by the largely Spanish-speaking crowd. Bill, what a race.
What a race. Okay, if you watch the race, Bold Forbes takes off. Bold Forbes is, I think, had a 6-length advantage entering the stretch. So you're probably sitting back, you're thinking, why would I even watch this? But right toward the end, 2 horses, Mackenzie Bridge and the Great Contractor, come right up on Bold Forbes. If there was 10 more feet, they would have won. Bold Forbes held on to win this. What an amazing finish at that Belmont race.
Yeah, and Mark, he wins 2 of the 3 Triple Crowns. Could you imagine if this was going for the Triple Crown?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, he wins the Kentucky Derby, finishes second in the Preakness. If he had won the Preakness, think about the difference between becoming a Triple Crown winner now would be by a nose, by a neck. I mean, that's just crazy.
Yeah, great race.
It would have changed everybody's life, even to nowadays. It would have changed their life.
I think it would go down the annals of horse racing history as like
exactly
one of the most exciting years ever.
Exactly what I'm saying. A Triple Crown winner, you'd still be talked about every day. I'm not saying people wouldn't don't know the Bold Forbes now, especially those close to horse racing. But if he wins a Triple Crown on every Kentucky Derby season, they would show his horse.
I love this. Trainer Laz Barrera was emotional in the winner's circle, noting that in 16 years of training in the United States, he had never won a $100,000 race before, and now in the last 7 weeks, he's won 5.
Wow.
So things were coming up well for Laz. Shh. The Phillies are at work. The 1976 Philadelphia Phillies. Man, I remembered the Tigers in '84, Mark, coming out of the gate, I think 35-5.
Yep.
But Phillies here, pretty close. They come out of the gate winning 32 of their first 43 games. So they're 32-11.
Mm-hmm. That was a great start. And the team finished at 101-61. And anytime you win over 100 games, you're probably the best team in baseball. But they were actually finished a game behind the Reds, who won 102 games that year. And they ended up losing the National League Championship Series to the Reds 3-0. But they were probably the second best team in baseball, yet they didn't get a chance to go to the World Series. But what would have been worse is prior to 1969, there were no divisions. It was American League and National League. So imagine that only one team from the National League gets to go to the World Series. There's no playoffs ahead of the World Series. And you're the Phillies, and you win 101 games, but you watch the Reds go to the World Series. That would be so hard.
Well, that's like, what was it, the 93 Giants?
That's right, 101 games, wasn't it? Or 104?
103 or something.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, and they lost to the Braves, was it? Or
lost to the Dodgers.
But the Braves.
The 1961 Tigers won 101 games that year. And they finished, I want to say, 7 or 8 games behind the Yankees.
Yeah. Crazy.
Isn't that crazy?
Billy Jim Lomborg was dealing. The double plate combination of Larry Boa and Dave Cash are getting the job done. And They had a pretty good third baseman too.
Yeah, Mike Schmidt. He had 12 home runs in the first month of the season. What did he finish with, Scott? 38, did we say?
Yeah.
But not bad. That's how a team gets off to a great start when your number one guy is doing number one type of stuff.
Yeah, like you said, Mark, great. This Phillies team is just about to start becoming really good.
Oh yeah.
They win their division here. I think they win their division the next couple years, but it's not until 1980 that they put it all together. Open and shut case. It's Jones. This is a question of who is the best player to ever play in the U.S. Open. And this guy is making the case that it's Bobby Jones. He played in only 11 U.S. Opens between 1920 and 30, winning 4, finishing second 4 times, never finishing worse than 11th. An extraordinary record for someone who only competed occasionally while pursuing degrees in engineering, English lit, and law. Bill, he was never a professional golfer.
No, he stayed an amateur throughout his career. And then at the end they said, and played with hickory shafted clubs, which I don't know what that. I've never played much golf, but yeah, he retired at the age of 28 to practice law. What an amazing to have that type of intelligence and that type of athletic ability.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, to me, the one thing that stands out though about Bobby Jones is not his golf game, it's his clothes, man. Those are awesome, man. And the closest anyone's ever come to duplicating those kind of outfits they wore back in the 20s, it was Payne Stewart when he wear those retro, clothes to play golf and stuff, like with the beret on and I don't know what you call those pants, but they're puffy and they end
Right.
like at your ankle.
Yep.
And then they played with ties on, it's so uncomfortable, man.
Is golf the only sport that doesn't have throwback?
Yeah, I think
Because
so.
wouldn't it be nice if golf would have a throwback tournament?
Yeah, they should do that for like the Ryder Cup or something.
Exactly. You
That'd be
have to
great.
come
Well, like
out
they
and
say,
play what they did in 1940 or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Payne Stewart did that. He was the one that.
Well,
that
it
did
only
I thought
works. I got to admit that Payne Stewart, it only works if you're good. If you come out
Yeah,
and
yeah.
listen the cut, they're like, yeah, that Bill guy, he's weird.
Exactly, no question. Win a tournament, I become legendary. Like, man, he just is a good dresser. You don't win anything, you're right. He's a loser, and he's weird.
Ah, after completing the Grand Slam in 1930, so he won all 4 majors, Jones retires from golf at age 28. He only played in 52 tournaments total. I mean, Tiger won how many
70,
tournaments?
yeah.
70 something, right?
Yeah.
So he won
Nicklaus
23
won
of the
73.
52, leaving the sport on his own terms while still at his absolute peak. And what did you guys say? He went on to become a lawyer, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
So golf probably just was golf was a means to an end for him.
Yeah, he just liked playing, but he was never a golfer.
Yeah.
The stuff and no nonsense. This is one of Chris Berman's all-time great names. Bert B. Home Blyleven escaped the perennial mediocre Minnesota Twins for the contending Texas Rangers in a multiplayer trade, more than tripling his salary to around, get this, $166,000 per year, a move he had clearly been eager to make because as he's walking off the final time, the mound in Minnesota, he flips off the crowd in Minnesota. So, Mark, he was quite a character.
He sure was, man, and he could throw that curveball. But yeah, I think he was asking for 85,000 a year, and they were offering him 65,000 a year. Imagine going to a ball player and saying that today. I mean, they'd say that's my per diem. What are you talking?
That's not even the major league minimum. Yeah.
Oh, it's not. But it's like Otani's going to make what, $68 million a year in 8 years, 9 years from now, all deferred. It's just nuts. But I mean, he had spent a couple years in Texas, and he actually in '77 no-hit the Angels. Sorry, Bill.
I don't mind. A lot of guys did that.
But he played on a lot of teams, and he had a lot of good years. So he wasn't like a one-horse wonder or whatever. He started with the Twins, which is how I remember him, and then the Rangers, and the Pirates, and the Indians, the Twins again, and then the Angels. In fact, I covered his press conference when he announced that he was signing with the Angels. I think that was like in '89 or something like that. He was a great pitcher. And then he finally got into the Hall of Fame in 2011.
Well, speaking of that, Billy, he's in the Hall of Fame, but a good friend of ours, Tommy John, is not, and their numbers are incredibly similar.
Yeah, we talked about that, Scott. You had some good stats on that. I know that Tommy John has 288 wins. Bly Levin has 287. And I think this is where we both talked about. Burt Blyleven had a great career. There's no, what would you say? Didn't he have something a little bit more than like complete games or something? What was
Yeah,
it,
he had
Scott?
3,701 strikeouts
There you
compared to
go.
Tommy's 2245.
But Tommy John has a surgery named after him, a surgery that actually changed a sport. So I don't know how he is not in the Hall of Fame. And
Yeah,
didn't say Tommy John, wasn't it the guy that got us Tommy John said he had like 50 no decisions or something like that?
that's right. Yeah, yeah.
Something that would put him way over the 300 mark. And he said this, he went in with a lead, and the bullpen would come in and blow it. They don't count those, but Tommy John's a Hall of Fame guy. That's not taking anything away from Burt Blyleven and his career, but Tommy John's a Hall of Famer.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and back to Blyleven, Bill, his biggest weakness was, by his own admission, concentration.
Yeah, he said, how many pitchers will ever give you that in-depth look at what they do on the mound? But Blyleven said, when he was on there, sometimes he would just think about other things. Like he'd think about several innings ahead, or he'd think about what he would say to reporters after a shutout. And sometimes he would just think about the rosin bag. And then he'd lose his stuff, and then he'd give up a big hit or a home run, and then he'd lock back in. But I'm sure that happens to a lot of pitchers, but he's the first one that I've read or heard about that actually talked about that.
And admitted that. Yeah.
Yep.
Bobby Bonds said Bert's got the stuff of a 20-game winner. He is a 20-game winner, whether he wins 20 games or not. Now, he had won 20 games one other time, I believe, maybe 73 or something like that. And Bill, there was another year where he came very close.
He won 19 games with Cleveland in 1984. I think he won 7 games or 8 games between August and the end of September. But in 8 of his final 9 starts of that year, he threw complete games. He threw back-to-back complete games late September that he went out in the 9th inning with a tie or a lead and they couldn't win, so he didn't get his 20 wins.
Ugh.
It wasn't that he was going 5 innings. He was out there dealing complete game after complete game back in the years when they would actually throw complete games.
And that means he had to have had 19 wins like, mid-August. Elsewhere in baseball, the Negro brothers.
Yeah, Joe Niekro. We'll talk about what we all remember him for, but he did pitch 16 seasons. He hit 1 home run in his entire major league career, and they mention it in this magazine, and it came against his brother Phil, May 29th, 1976. But I don't know if he's known for anything else, Mark, is he?
No, nothing to do with an Emery board or anything like that. No. I remember I was working at CBS the night of that game when the umpire comes out to the mound to check his cap and his stuff or whatever. So he tries to throw the Emery board away, but it's so obvious. And as he's throwing it, you can see the umpire looking at it. What did you just throw over there? It's like, yeah. Now today you can't get away with that because they check you after you walk off the mound, everything,
Yeah.
Make sure you don't have any foreign substance on you.
After striking out with runners on second and third in a 2-1 loss to the Cubs, Met slugger Dave Kingman completely lost it in the clubhouse, smashing a bottle of hair tonic, kicking a duffel bag, throwing coat hangers, and destroying his hair dryer. Whew! But Mark, he got a little bit of advice, and that helped.
Yep. He went first to USC baseball coach Rod Dado, and he told him, hit the first good pitch tonight, okay? And then his teammate Joe Torre advised him that he was not following through on a swing. So he gave him some advice. So what happens? He swings at the first pitch thrown to him in the 4th, 5th, and 7th inning, followed through, and he ends up hitting his 18th, 19th, and 20th homer of the season. He had 8 RBIs in that game, and an 11-0 win. And the next night he had his 21st homer. So that advice helped. I mean, Kingman was all or nothing. It was homer or strikeout.
11-0 blowout win over the Dodgers. Now, 2 years later, in May of '78, Kingman hit 3 homers in a game against the Dodgers again. And after that game, reporter Paul Olden asked Dodgers manager Tommy Lasorda, "What's your opinion of Kingman's performance?" Lasorda said, "What's my opinion of Kingman's performance? What the do you think my opinion of it is? I think
You can't say that word.
I think it was fucking horse. Put that in. I don't
No
fucking
profanity,
care.
please.
Opinion of his performance. He beat us with 3 home runs. What the do you mean? What is my opinion of his performance? How could you ask me a question like that? What is my opinion of his performance? Shit, he hit 3 home runs. I'm fucking pissed off to lose that fucking game. And you ask me my opinion of his performance? Shit, that's a tough question to ask me, isn't it? What is my opinion of his performance? Olden, yes, it is. I asked it and you gave me an answer. Lasorda, well, I didn't give you a good answer because I'm mad, but I mean, guy hits 3 home runs against us.
And you know what? That answer went unedited on the air on
It
all
did.
newscasts that night.
It did.
Oh, that is an all-timer. I listen to that every once in a while.
God, that's good.
Yeah.
Like that guy in Slapshot story, man. I'm offended by your use of foul language.
Exactly.
The only one I liked along with those sort of wasn't Elia of the Cubs.
Yeah.
Didn't he go on? They don't even have jobs out there.
Those cockers.
That's
He's talking about his own fans.
Exactly.
Right. Man, it was a rumble in the riverfront. The U.S. Olympic boxing trials in Cincinnati showcased the country's top 88 amateur boxers, revealing a strong team heading to Montreal, and it included, Bill, one of the all-time greats.
Sugar Ray Leonard. Sure. I mean, the young Sugar Ray Leonard. He had a trainer named Dave Jacobs. He pretty much stated the obvious. He said, I saw right off that Ray had the potential to be a good boxer. Huh, that's interesting. Well, Ray's first international fight came at 16. He knocked out a Russian opponent with a single left hook. Then move up a year or two, 1974. They, incredibly enough, they gave a decision. Sugar Ray's fighting another Russian. They gave the decision to the Russian boxer, who looked at Leonard and gave him the trophy. So the Russian boxer knew Leonard was better and gave him the trophy.
Yeah, 127-5 record for Sugar Ray Leonard as an amateur, which is just an incredible amount of fights for a young guy. And he's being compared to Muhammad Ali and Sugar Ray Robinson because his coach says he's the greatest amateur boxer he had seen in 38 years. Mark, these trials had some big names.
Sure did. Leon Spinks, who's from, they say, St. Louis and a Marine Lance Corporal stationed in North Carolina, wins the 178-pound title. He was a bronze medal winner at the World Games in Havana. And he said his brother Michael, not as highly rated, won the 165-pound championship.
Well, I think Spinks was 178, and later on, years down the road, would beat Muhammad Ali. I'm not sure what his size was then, but man, 178 seemed like to fight Muhammad.
And I still remember the Tyson-Michael Spinks fight where...
Yes, that was a good one.
I was driving in the car thinking I'd get back to the station in time to watch like the second round. And
there was no second round.
There was no second round, my God.
Spinks looked truly scared in that fight.
Yeah.
I would be too.
Yeah, rightly so. Converting Carolina blue to gold, the U.S. Olympic basketball team was selected at trials held on the North Carolina State campus, despite being coached by Dean Smith. It ended up heavily ACC flavored. Mark, what did the roster look like?
Well, it had a lot of North Carolina guys, 4 of them to be exact, including Mitch Kupchak, who Laker fans might know. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Phil Ford, previous guest on POP.
Yep.
He made the team. It was very, very, very Carolina blue flavor to that team.
Adrian Dantley.
Yep.
Great little, he had a great Hall of Fame career. So, and, you forget they're coming off that 72 Olympic loss. So they really want to win in 76. And I think they would do just fine.
Down the stretch they come.
Appointment out of starting line as we get towards the end here. The article profiles the 2 men expected to run the greatest 1,500-meter race in Olympic history at Montreal. Who are they, Billy?
John Walker and Filbert Bailly. 2 of the greatest runners still ever.
Yeah, and this was set up as like a dream match to have these two contrasting athletes from vastly different worlds united by an obsessive love of hard running. They were really thinking that it was going to, become this Olympic clash, but for reasons out of their control, it never happens.
No, and they'd been trying to get together. Walker and Baye had been trying to get the one-on-one match, but Baye was always injured or just couldn't make it in the country or people couldn't find him. But I know you talked about that, Scott. I'll get back to what you were saying. There were 25 African nations that boycotted the Olympics in protest of the New Zealand rugby tour of South Africa with apartheid. So they boycotted, and that allowed Walker to come up and take the gold and not have to worry about running against Baye.
Yeah, I had never heard of that
Bye.
African boycott of the Olympics. So Boye wouldn't run in the Olympics due to the boycott, but also he was sick.
Incredibly enough, Baye had malaria, and he seems to be proud of it because he said, "This is my disease. If the mosquitoes bite me, I always get it. My blood is weak. I know it. This is chronic malaria. If you, a European, caught it, you could die very quickly. But us Tanzanians, we've built up an immunity. We catch it, we're in bed for 1 or 2 days, we're back out there." Oh my God.
That's really interesting because they have a picture with him and his fiancee, and Anna, and the look on her face is almost like, "You have what?"
I know that. Didn't that look? Yeah, she does. She has that look like, you didn't tell me
What do
that.
you
We're
have?
together. I mean, malaria, I don't know how many people it kills, but I'm assuming at one time it killed thousands, if not
Oh,
millions.
yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
to talk about it like, yeah, well, I went down the store, I got a pricker in my finger, and I had malaria.
So the dream match never happened between those two guys.
You heard it here. For the record.
For the record, Mark.
Well, I have Love is in the Air. Terry Bradshaw, you know him, the famous Pittsburgh Steelers quarterback, and JoJo Starbuck, the famous figure skater, they are getting married.
Finally.
It's the second marriage for Bradshaw, the first for Miss Starbuck. They were in love. They were married for about 7 years. They got divorced in 1983, but in 1976, it was love.
Yep. And the Hall of Fame quarterback is now on wife number 4.
Okay.
Just like his Super Bowls.
What's his completion
Yeah.
percentage then?
Yeah, they each got a ring.
And they probably did.
Bill, Max Carey, Hall of Famer?
Yep. Going 86. Okay, we'll talk about it because Scott, we talked about this before. He did have the stolen base record, which stood until 1974. And yes, he is a Hall of Famer. But I'm not criticizing guys back in the years. But Max Carey played 20 years with Pittsburgh and Brooklyn, ended with a 285 batting average, 70 home runs, 802 RBI, 738 stolen bases. Is that nowadays would Max Carey be in the Hall of Fame?
No.
That sounds like Darren Erstad stats there.
Yeah. Yeah, no. Good thing Max died 50 years ago.
Yes, but I'm saying good for him. I mean, obviously, back in the day when they looked at those numbers, said this dude's unbelievable. And mind you, I don't know what kind of outfielder he was. Maybe stole home runs every game.
Before the fame, there was the flame. Faces in the crowd.
Faces in the crowd. It's a loaded field. Mark, you go first.
Well, it would have been a great segue from Terry Bradshaw, this one. Frank Pollard, 19 years old, is a senior at Meridian High, and he is the highest scorer in the history of Texas high school track meet. He won the discus, the shot put, the 100, and the 220. His sprint relay team also places fourth. So he's a track star, but his forte in the professional ranks would be as a football player. He went to Baylor, and then he gets drafted by the Steelers, and he plays from 1980 to 1988 with the Steelers as a running back. He rushed for nearly 4,000 yards and 20 touchdowns in his career. His best career was probably 1985 when he ran for 991 yards. He also caught 24 passes that year. His high touchdown mark was in '84 when he had 6. So he had a decent career.
Bill, Dan Lindelof.
Oh, the old Lindelof guy. He won the lightweight division of the Northeast Tea and Arm Wrestling Championships. Then he got cocky. He challenged heavyweight champion Lonnie Barnum, spotting him 50 pounds with 8 inches. And incredibly enough, Lindelof pinned him in 8 seconds.
Woo.
He won his weight class, was the overall championship, and then repeated as champion back also in 1977.
Arm wrestling used to be, it was on TV pretty frequently.
It was. And there was a Sylvester Stallone movie.
That's right. What
Over
was
the
that
Top.
called?
Over the Top.
Over the Top.
Over the Top. That's right. Had a Kenny Loggins song in there. Not often we have 6-year-olds in the faces in the crowd. Matt Franco of Thousand Oaks led his soccer team to a 15-0 record and the Southern California area title by scoring 43 goals in 10 regular season matches and 12 goals in the 4-game playoff. He personally outscored all but 2 of the 36 teams in the division. He would give up soccer for baseball and have a 10-year Major League Baseball career from around 94 or 95 to 2005, something like that. Mostly as a pinch hitter. I think at one point he held the record for most pinch hits in a season. So Matt Franco doing it all, starting at the age of 6 in Thousand Oaks. 19th hole, Billy, we got a pissed off guy from Maine.
Yes, Peter Anderson's not taking it anymore. He says, "Sir, I was totally disgusted by the fight. In my mind, the real villains were Mickey Rivers and Craig Nettles." He's talking about the Fisk-Piniella fight. But he says, I'm disgusted with the real villains are Mickey Rivers and Craig Nettles, who with their newly discovered talent could make the Philadelphia Flyers.
Ugh. Another Broad Street bully, and they're wearing pinstripes.
Yes, but remember that video that all you hear of the fight with Fisk and Piniella is Mickey Rivers is hitting everybody in the back of the head.
Yeah.
And so he might be good on the Flyers.
Yeah, he would have been. Yeah, for sure.
Instead of calling this the 19th hole, we should just call it the Twisted Sisters section, in honor of Dee Snider, and just start singing "We're Not Gonna Take It Anymore."
Right. Yeah.
That'd be your thing then, buddy.
We're not gonna take it. No, we ain't gonna take it. We ain't gonna take it anymore.
Been unleashed.
Good song there, bud.
Hey, don't forget to follow us.
You wonder why I got kicked out of choir in 10 minutes.
No, we don't.
I don't.
We wonder why it took 10 minutes.
Yes, that was way too long.
Don't forget to follow us on most every social media platform and download the show. Leave a review, subscribe, help us get the word out. We are now, 126, 127 episodes in. So listen to this one, listen to past ones. And next week, Mark, we have quite a show. One of the greatest third basemen ever.
That's right. Ken Brett's younger brother is getting on the show. Okay, his name is George. George Brett, Hall of Famer. Great ball player. And man, there's so much to talk to him about, from pine tar to hitting to, oh my God, there's just, to why a very popular pop song from 2013 was inspired by him.
Looking forward to that. I mean, there are some times when we get look, I'm happy with all of our guests. I really am. But when this one presented itself, I was like, you got to be kidding me. So really happy to be having George Brett join us in a week. That's the June 14th, 1976 issue of Sports Illustrated. Dwight Stones breaks the world record. Bold Forbes wins the Bilmont. The Phillies are rolling. Bobby Jones gets his due. Burt B. Home Bly 11 heads to Texas. Sugar Ray Leonard dazzles in Cincinnati. We'll do it all again next week with George Brett. For Mark, for Bill, I'm Scott. And who are we, Bill?
Past our prime.